Thursday.
Happy Thursday, everybody. Good to see you all back again. Hope you enjoyed Monday's broadcast, The Injection of Truth. It is up on our website. So if you missed it Monday, no worries. You can still catch it again and again and again and again. And don't forget to share, subscribe, and like.
And all that stuff. Yeah. So we are pre-recorded right now. We are not live. So hold your comments till the end.
No, you can still comment anytime.
Sure. Yeah. So today we have a special guest who we bumped into. When was it? The
July.
Yeah, at the conference with Kellyanne that we did.
Yes. And we are the Change Conference.
Right. And then have bumped into him again. This is Ritchy from Evolve Blockchain. And I'm going to just slaughter his last name, so I'm not going to even bother. I'm going to let him slaughter his own last name. Ritchy, welcome to the show. How are you?
Hey, how are you? Great. Great to have you. Great to be on the show. Appreciate you guys having me on.
Yes.
Yeah, our pleasure. We do not know enough about blockchain. We're pretty open about that. So instead of giving you this intro, like we know what we're talking about, we're just going to jump right in and let you kind of run the show here.
Exactly. Well, what I know of blockchain, I learned from real estate, which is very little. Technology literally makes me cry. I am technology retarded, and I openly admit that. There is no shame in openly admitting that, as far as I'm concerned. But I know in my career as a realtor, we were talking about blockchain probably about 10, 15 years ago, and talking about how it's going to evolutionize the real estate industry, because now everything will be on one little link or URL or whatever you want to call it. And you could click on that and you can see that every property has insurance, or whether there have been any insurance claims, what lawyers closed on what deals, how many lawsuits were against it, who has owned it, what the impact assessment, literally anything and everything to do with one particular property would be all in one little space. So as a realtor, it'd make our job a lot easier. When people ask what's wrong with the house or has it had any claims, we don't have to now trust that a human is going to be forthcoming, because we can just click on the little URL and bang, literally everything about that property would come up. And we were, as realtors, going, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Think of how many lawsuits we are now not going to be a part of for misinformation, because it's all there. We don't have to trust the seller to give us that information anymore. And that's basically the bulk of what I know about blockchain. So meeting you and having you on the show is really awesome. So you can explain to us what it is and why we don't need to be afraid of it.
Yeah, well, a trustless system, immutable ledger. So I'll take your example, for example, when it comes to the real estate markets. You can tokenize ownership of properties going forward. And now you can have a unique one of one. You'll never have two different ownerships of that same property. Everything information-wise about that property, when it was sold, the amount it was sold for, anything that happened related to that property, like you were just speaking of earlier, can now be metadata onto that token that resembles the ownership of that property itself, right? Blockchain is the next step in a trustless system where once you put data into that system, you can't just change that data later on, because it's better for you that you don't show what happened to that property or what happened in the past, right? Once that information is put on the block and we move on to the next block, that's why I call it the blockchain. It's a chain of blocks with transactions and information. They go over and over and they all link together in a big history that goes from the start, the Genesis block, to the current day last block that was mined or validated by the node operators themselves. So all that information can be put into these blocks as a transaction metadata. And I don't want to go too technical, because I understand some people are just starting off, but it basically gives people the ability to put this information on a chain that's decentralized. So computers all over the world are working together to validate these blocks and secure this chain, this network. And now you have a way of interacting with people without having to trust anybody. You can verify everything that's happened and that is happening. If someone says, hey, I sent you something, you can verify that they sent you it. And if they say, oh, I didn't receive it, I can verify that they actually did or didn't receive that, because it's all open. It's all there for everyone to see, every single transaction. All of that's on the blockchain itself, and it's an open network. right? You can go right now to Evo Explorer and see every single transaction that's happened on Evolve blockchain since the Genesis block, right? There's nothing hidden. There's nothing that is not out in the open for everyone that is visible, right? It resembles a change in the status quo that we have now, and the next steps in people being able to work together, develop, innovate, and not have to necessarily take people's word for anything. We can verify all of it now. And that resembles a real change when it comes to healthcare, to access, to voting. There's a lot of industries that are going to be completely revolutionized by mixing the blockchain technology, AI, and other technologies that you have right now as we speak, going into the future. That's the next steps. And that's why I got involved in it. That's why I made it a mission of mine to get in this space and to build, to innovate, because at the end of the day, that's what we were meant to do. We're meant to evolve. And that's why Evolve was a perfect name for this blockchain. And it fits us perfectly.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, when I first started blockchain, is obviously tied right in with crypto, and that's where I started becoming aware of it. And then I understand it's its own thing. It's not. It doesn't necessarily have to do anything to do with crypto. It is its own thing. There are so many applications. One of the ones I'm really interested in right now is voter and election fraud. We have covered election fraud I don't know how many times. What a great example to tell us how blockchain could be used in that, to help people really understand the power of blockchain and blockchain technology. So in the case of elections, we've got the BC elections, and people are calling foul. We've got the Ontario elections, and I don't know.
We're calling foul.
We're calling foul. We've seen in the last few elections ways that Canada has been cheating, both with social media and just the way they do elections, and then right down to now they're using Dominion machines and whatnot. So how could we use this to kind of end voter fraud?
It comes with the open and transparent ledger. So you have your voting token, right?
Yep.
Your voting ballot, let's call it. When you vote, that ballot represents your vote. You should be able to, the second that vote is done, right? So let's say at 5:00 today, the voting on this bill is over. And the second that's over, you should be able to go verify that your vote was counted and what it was, and the total results of every other vote that happened. Not a week later, not a month later, not 3 months later, like in the US that we've seen that happen.
Yeah.
Instantly, the second it's done. There's no reason we can't do that. It should be stored in decentralized servers around the world, and you have your access point through your ballot, your voting ballot, which is an NFT on a blockchain network. What that resembles is your access to your information. You don't have access to anyone else's information, right? And when they go look at what the results of that vote was, they see the votes, their actual yes or no for whatever it was, but not who did those votes. When you register to get your voting ballot, you will receive your voting ballot. They verified you right there that you're a part of whatever region it was, that you can vote for that locale, for that provincial vote, for that national vote, right? But no one else, and there's privacy laws there that protect you for the city not to give to expose what ballot is whose, basically, just like everything else. There's laws there that protect you. So now we can give a transparent account of every single vote, instant access to verify that your vote was counted. And you can come verify that one day after, a month after, a year after, 10 years after, doesn't matter. It doesn't go away, right? That access to that database is ongoing into the future because the blockchain starts and continues. You can go check the very first vote ever done or the recent vote that just happened yesterday. Right? That's a significant change in accountability and trust, right? I don't need to trust that you counted my vote. I can verify it myself. I can go check, right? And once you get past that point of getting through that barrier of the digital space, I understand people have concerns, and with them trying to do CBDCs and all that stuff, you're right to have those concerns, right? But like every technology, there's good and bad, and it all depends how you utilize them, right? Having this open sourced is a big step forward. And I think most projects should open source as much as you possibly can. So it validates and assures people of how it was built and what can or can't be done. So a smart contract will show the functions that you can do or can't do in that smart contract. And right there, you know the possibilities if you can delete votes, if you can do anything like that, which this would not have that. So that was one of our main use cases that we're working on as we speak and we're developing is evolve voting. And for obvious reasons, right? In a time where the voter confidence is extremely low. And I think a lot of people don't even vote because they feel like their vote doesn't count. Why would I have to waste my time and go vote when I believe it's this or it's that, or it may be fraudulent or it may be rigged? That's probably one of the biggest hurdles of getting everyone to participate again, is giving them a system where they feel that their vote's actually being counted and everything is above board, that there isn't 100,000 votes that didn't get counted because Canada Post got delayed, right? There's so many instances where why should we trust it, right? When we have technology that can verify all this and we can not have to trust it, why wouldn't we use that?
Mhm.
Now, when you say open source, what does that particularly mean?
So open source means that all the code is accessible to anyone that wants to see it. So on our GitHub repositories, we have a lot of our code that's in the blockchain and the smart contracts, and the applications will be there as well, where all of the code of how it works and the buildup of that code, how it was put together, is there for anyone to access and verify. So you can literally see behind the door or behind the application the makeup of how it was built and verify that everything was done properly and there's no holes, there's no vulnerabilities there.
So can anybody that has the ability or understands code, are they able to go in and change it through this open source? Or
you can't
no?
change it, you can only see it. You can only see how it was built. You can't actually change the repository. Only our developers can do any changes to that repository.
Okay.
So, well, so that doesn't make it more susceptible to hacking then, to see how they can get in?
No, because you can't actually access it. There are certain parts where, like, when you execute a smart contract, you can't go back and change the smart contract after, unless there's a function into that smart contract where you can do that, right? So when we execute it, if there's no function there that says that we can, for example, a proxy contract, where that contract looks to wherever the proxy contract is and we can change the proxy contract, right? Ours will not be built that way. You can verify that when we make that public, where the function's going to be all there. Once we execute that token, that smart contract, it won't be able to be changed after that.
Okay.
Right? It's set in stone on the blockchain.
Right.
It's not like a hacker could come in there and change anything there because of the way the blockchain works.
Okay, so, but don't they say like 128 encryption key can't be hacked because it's so big or whatever? And yet, you know, we hear about our government systems getting hacked. We hear about healthcare systems getting hacked. We hear about Home Depots getting hacked all the time and credit card companies getting hacked. I'm assuming that they have the same kind of security where, and they tell us, oh, your private information is safe. It can't be hacked because we've got all these encryption codes. What's the difference between that and your smart contracts?
So I'm assuming a lot of times it's a person that's the flaw there. So they have their access to those servers, their logins that get compromised, right? They get an email saying that something happened, they have to sign in, and now that person got access to their logins that chances are your password for your emails, probably your password for a lot of other things as well. Not everyone does like letters and numbers and special characters when they do their passwords. It's something that relates to them that they're going to remember. And unfortunately, those aren't the strongest passwords, right? When it comes to blockchain, it's a little different where it doesn't work just as a server on a network, right? These are hundreds, if not thousands sometimes, of computers all over the world working together to validate blocks and put this information on the blockchain itself. Once that gets on there, you can't manipulate that. You can't change that, right? So our voting token, for example, the voting ballot, it would be bound to your digital wallet, okay? You can't send that to somebody else. You can't trade that. You can't sell that. There's no value to that other than the voting process itself. You can only access your information by having that ballot in your wallet. That's it. You can't have two people accessing the information at the same time. There's only one key in the world to your data when it comes to your voting records. It's not a login where I can share that login and password to anybody, or I can get that exposed when I'm online or something, or someone puts malicious software on my computer, right? That tries copying when I my keystrokes. when I'm logging into certain accounts, it's a token that I hold in my digital wallet. Without that token, right, that's the only token in the world that can decrypt my data, right? So it's not just a login and a password. It's a unique one of one in the world token that you hold that's bound to your wallet.
So how easy would it be to create people? Because we know that they create databases, they create identities to add to the voter base, but those people don't actually exist.
There should be a corresponding how many people are in that area that are paying taxes and able to vote, and the amount of votes eligible to be in that area as well, right? So if there's a difference there, then obviously someone's doing something corrupt. So that's working with city centers and regions to make sure that the process itself, when you're KYCing the person, so they'll have to show ID, they'll have to prove that they live in that area, right? And then every so many years, vetting that those roll calls are accurate, that someone didn't move to a different area, right? But the way we're going to build the wallets, you'll only be able to have one voting token or ballot in your wallet at a time. You can't have two of them.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so first the positive. Like, I know that you're working with direct democracy, and one of the things they're putting forward is the idea of direct democracy is that people get an input, so blockchain can help with those tokens. The MP that represents some sort of region can now put a question out, and people can vote on the answer to that question.
Exactly.
And so that's powerful. And I'm kind of in for that reason alone, because it actually puts the power back in the hands of people. However, this is the NFT token is tied to somebody, and this is starting to look dangerously like digital ID to me. And I know that the power behind the technology, or the people behind the technology, is really what makes the difference between good and evil technology. However, the people in charge right now are going to exploit whatever they can. So how is this different from digital ID? And convince me that we're not helping to build a system that is going to work against us eventually.
Well, first you have to verify the person that is actually voting is able to and should be able to vote in the area. So there has to be some type of KYC that validates you're living in that area, you have the ability to vote in that area. Secondly, it's how open sourced, for example, is one of the strongest points that we have here, because we will be open sourced on a lot of the code that's the makeup of these applications. You'll see that the only use case, the only way it's being used, your ID, was when you got verified. After that, that's the city's thing, right? They hold those records. We as a company will not know who has all these, the information of all these tokens, right? We just know that they were verified by the city. This is the person, this is the amount of people that should be there, and the amount of voting ballots that are actually there for that area, right? So the government or someone who was malicious would never open source the code, because they'd have stuff in there that they'd be using for other things, right? This gives you accountability when you and your representative can communicate directly, and there's an open and public record of what happened there. So they say, hey, what do you guys think about Bill C, whatever it may be? And now 1,000 people in your region that are qualified to vote, that can vote there and have KYC'd, and you know that because they have a token, they vote, 700 of them say, you know what, yes, we like this. Now your representative has a direct line saying, this is what your people want. The second he goes against you and votes no on that bill, then guess what? You know he's there for himself and not for you. He's no longer representing you, right? Mm-hmm. That power of the transparency and be able to prove that he's either on your side doing what you put him there to do, or she was there to do, or doing the opposite, right? Mm-hmm. He's going to go whatever the way they want to, and they're there just to puff smoke and do whatever they want and stuff their pockets, unfortunately, sometimes. Mm-hmm. Right? So, us being open source is key to making sure that transparency is there, right? As mm-hmm. where someone malicious would never have that open sourced, would never be able to verify everything that's in the contract.
Right. They'd want to guard and protect that information.
They'd hide it all. Like a central bank digital currency, you'd never see the contract.
Right.
You'd have no clue what they actually do. And if you ever found out, then chances are there's some stuff that would shock you.
Mhm.
Right. So how do people get verified? I know you said the government or your city representative, but again, that could come down to if the government decides digital ID is the way to go and they're not going to verify you unless you have digital ID or unless you give up your biometrics. Is there any other way to be verified other than going through a government source, which could bring in digital ID or biometrics?
Well, that all so that will start from the side of, first it's going to be on the side. It's not going to be directly in voting for elections, for example.
Right.
That's where you build up the trust in the community and everything else, right? We're not a government. So people are going to choose to use this. People are going to choose to vote a politician into office that's going to choose to use our tool that they've chosen, right? And they'll be able to verify what happens on our side of it. Now, there is a part there where the city center has to act accordingly, right? So if we were trying to have this partnership with our tool and the city hall from that area that's registering the actual people, there's got to be checks and balances. And that's where Kelly would be someone who is much better at explaining the legal side of stuff and what can be done there. On the technical side, we can verify that every vote was counted for, what it was. You can check all of that, and it's open sourced. On the legal side and the restrictions and stuff that we can put on that side, and that would come to, that's why we're focusing on the tech, right? There's a lot of stuff that still has to be finished off and sorted out, because nothing's perfect. It starts off with an idea and it gets better and better, and the iterations get better as time goes on. And that comes with feedback from the public as well, right? On how the best way to navigate some of these sticky situations. Because like, what happens if you run into someone that works at one of these city centers that goes rogue and wants to do something malicious, right? There's got to be checks and bounds that will be put in place before this gets implemented.
Right. So how I'm summarizing that then is that governments would never really be on board with this because it's too open and transparent. But what it does is, like, if you want to go into a riding, for example, and set up shop and tell people, if you want to have like secure voting rights. So each of these, when they come up with a bill, we put the summaries of the bill up, and people can now vote on whether or not they would have their MP vote in favor or against. And then you have at least a record of how the people wanted it and how the MP wants it. So if as a citizen-led initiative, it's pretty powerful. Yeah,
100%. And then you go into like polls, for example. Right. We all know that when they take some of these polls, they go into a liberal or conservative area. They ask 1,000 people and they say, hey, half of Canadians want this or that. It's like, you asked 1,000 people. There's close to 40 million Canadians. Right. What realistic number are you getting here? It's all skewed. So imagine we have 5 or 6 or 10 million people using the application, and you throw out a poll to everyone. Now you have registered voters that you can verify are Canadian citizens living in whatever area it is, right? And we don't know who they are exactly. The city centers know that. But we have an accurate poll that resembles the will of the people again, and not just 500 or 1,000 people in a specific area, right? You go to Ottawa, you can get one opinion. You can go to Toronto, you get another one. You go to a rural area, you can get something completely different. So it's a diverse country, and there's many different opinions and thoughts and likes and dislikes. And this gives the power for at least your area to communicate with your representative and tell them exactly what you want. And accountability is there. When he doesn't or she doesn't do what the people told him or her that they wanted to happen there, she's no longer there for you, or he's no longer there for you, right? It's transparent to its core. And now the people who would say, hey, I don't want to use this application. Why wouldn't you want to use the application? Don't you want to know what your constituents want? Isn't that why you ran? You're representing your area, are you not? So yes, there's going to be pullback and some resistance from the government side, obviously. And that's why it's going to be hard to get this implemented into actual voting itself when it comes to provincial or national voting. But if enough people get behind it, enough politicians get elected using the system, eventually that will be the status quo, and that will happen. But it's going to take time, like everything else.
Right. Will there be possibilities, or is it dependent on the smart contract to actually be able to make comments or question your MP, and then it's there and they can't say, well, we didn't see the question, or, well, nobody ever asked, or nobody ever told us? You
Yeah,
know,
so
we didn't know you had an adverse reaction. Nobody told us. Oh, look, there it is.
records, exactly. So when it comes to like just chat and like trying to communicate with your representative, that can be built into the application. When it comes to actual like proposals of stuff that you want to get changed in your area, if you get enough people in your area to vote with you on that, he has to bring it up. The representative has to bring it up, and the best person to bring up that and talk about that would be Kelly herself. She's very knowledgeable when it comes to politics and everything else.
Right.
And when it comes to the application itself, it just gives you that tool to prove, hey, we did this proposal. Majority of the people in the area voted yes to this proposal. You as a representative should now bring it up to the next step, right? If it passes there, it goes to provincial. If it passes there, it goes national, right? So there's a sequence there. Instead of going around getting people to sign a petition, you're getting digital petitions being done. And it can be done really quick from the seat of your couch or wherever you may be.
Wow.
Well, that's elections. So what is your, that was our passion. What is your passion? What's the most valuable application of blockchain technology in what industry for you?
There's a lot of use cases that we're exploring right now. Healthcare, I think, will be one of the most disruptive. We're working on what we call Evo Health, and it's a separate company, Evo Health Alliance. It's registered in Canada, and we're building on an application that's going to give the power back to the patients. So your health records should be yours. Common sense, right? They're your health records. You should be able to see them when you want and know who's looking at them, give access, revoke access. So the system that we're building using decentralized servers, blockchain technology in the form of your health token and your smart contracts that interact with the health token, give access. So you'll be able to give access to any doctor in the world. You'll be able to revoke access to any doctor in the world. You'll be able to add symptoms, add blood pressure readings. Your medical devices will be able to upload some of this information to your data. So if you click on the skip to database dashboard, at the top right there.
Skip to dashboard. Okay.
This is a basic UI of what we're building out. So at the top, you'll see you have all your doctors. You'll be able to book a meeting with your doctor, either in person, Zoom call, or by phone. You'll be able to add a new professional to your medical team. When you add a new professional, you're giving them access through a smart contract to your medical data. Okay, this data is stored in decentralized servers around the world. It's encrypted, military-grade encryption. Your token is the only thing that can decrypt your data. So everyone has a unique token that can only decrypt your data, no one else's. Okay, it's as secure as you can possibly get. And you'll be able to choose which data you can give access to. Let's say your dentist would not have access to the same data as your physician is, or your psychiatrist, right? There'll be slightly various things where you're going to give different access to different data to different professionals, but you'll be able to manage your whole medical team from one UI, one application, right? You'll be able to interact with your doctors. If you click on medical preferences there, just below emergency on the right side, you'll be able to put all of your organ donor stuff, do not resuscitate, the things that you would want a hospital to know if you couldn't talk for yourself, right? You'll be able to change these as you grow as well. So let's say I don't want to give organs today, but maybe 10 years down the line, I do want to. I can change that on this application. And now my medical data has been updated. If something happens to me tomorrow, I now have that updated and the doctor can act accordingly, right? Or not act accordingly. Wow. This is all very specialized / patient-oriented, dedicated, I guess, where we're going to give the power back for the patient themselves to control everything to do with their medical health journey, right? When I have a symptom that my leg has been hurting me for a week, I can add that symptom to my medical data. And when I come in to see my doctor, he's going to say, hey, I see on your chart here, because you've given me access, you've had leg pains for the last 4 weeks. What's been going on there? Oh yeah, it's not something big. But then the doctor sees this trend, right? So it's not a one time, hey, you're coming in with a pain. It's this has been happening for the last 4 months or last 3 weeks. And this may be a symptom of something, a bigger problem, right? With our application, you'll be able to have multiple doctors working on your case at the exact same time. When one doctor adds a data point, that could be a test result, that could be a surgery, that could be a blood test, for example, all of your doctors get access to that same data point at the exact same time.
Mm-hmm. What I like about this in the last 5 years, we've seen doctors come and doctors go, doctors speak out, doctors lose licenses even, and then your doctor who you're stuck with because there are no other options for you and your government is dragging their heels. You're not actually relegated to your area. You can search those doctors out and see if they'll become part of your team. You're not bound by government limits anymore, and that's kind of. You reach out to these doctors and ask if they'll be on your team. And these doctors who are, kicked out of their hospitals, they're looking for something to do. The power in that alone, really competes with the current healthcare system, I think.
Even when it comes to medical tourism, it's growing significantly over the last several years.
Yes.
Turkey, Panama, Germany, there's a bunch of places around the world to offer much cheaper healthcare when it comes to tests, surgeries, etc. You can go to one of these locations, do a head-to-toe workup, and get all your results added to your database. Now your doctor's back in Canada or US or Portugal, wherever your doctors are located. Sometimes it's multiple doctors in multiple locations. Will have access to your results no matter where in the world, right?
Yeah. Well, what I like is doctors are retiring. Like I've had 2 doctors in my lifetime so far retire, and I've had to pay to get my records to give it to my next new doctor. And if you've got this, you no longer have to pay for your medical records ever again.
Mm-hmm.
You own your medical records, right? You control your medical records. If you want to go to a natural health doctor and give them access to your records, you can, right? You should be able to. You should be able to do whatever form of health you choose is best for yourself, whether that's natural, whether that's the traditional system, whether that's the new and innovative systems that's coming out, right? You should be able to go from here, move to a different country, and then give access to everything you've given your other doctor access to. And if you want to, keep giving the other doctor access or revoke it. It's up to you. In 3 seconds, you can revoke or give access to anyone in the world. Another major feature we have there that I think is extremely important and that'll save lives is the emergency function. So let's say I move to, or I go to Europe for travel. I get into an accident. In this situation, know something's really wrong. I don't know how much time I have to make a call, to give enough information about what happened to save my life in case an EMT shows up and gives me something I'm allergic to, for example. So when I hit that emergency button at the top there, it's going to send a message to my doctor.
Yeah.
Can I do this, or is all hell going to break out?
No, go ahead. It's just an example here. You click confirm emergency. So it's going to give a notification to my doctor first, open a line of communication. It's going to give a notification to whoever the person that makes decisions for me. So that might be a daughter or son, a mother or father, a friend, etc. Right. And it's also going to give, in the language of the area, a notification to EMS, the emergency services. There's an emergency. Here's the location of it. John Doe, blood type 0, allergic to penicillin, latex, and these are the prior existing conditions they have. That alone is going to save lives. That alone is going to give life-saving treatment from that open communication of the doctor to the emergency services. Right.
Now, do the medical centers have to buy into the technology in order to access it, or can I just be carrying my tablet or my cell phone with me and then bang, it's there?
Dead on. So the ones that choose to work with us, obviously it'd be more streamlined. The ones that do not want to work with our system, we can build it out so that it's interoperable with the systems they have. So I can give access to my database as like a file instead of being them using our actual application itself. So there's going to be a patient version of our application and a professional version of our application. And our goal is to give accessibility to the information to anywhere in the world that you need to. So even if they're not using our system, we want to build the back end of this where it could just be an API call that gives them access to the most popular medical data systems out there that are being used in hospitals and clinics, because there's a bunch. But we want to be able to work with them because at the end of the day, it's not about everyone using our application. It's about saving lives and having people have correct treatment. You go into a hospital, they know nothing about you, they're going to treat you one way. And I'm not saying they're going to mistreat you, but if they knew all the information ahead of time, including like the calendar that has your symptoms you've had all week type thing, high blood pressure for 5 days or a few weeks type thing, it's going to go a long way in getting people better treatment and not having these mistakes that are made just because of not knowing prior existing conditions a patient has, right? The more information you have, the better you can treat a patient at the end of the day.
How does consent work? We're learning now that they're changing names for like we are anti-shot as you are anti-bioweapon that they unleashed on COVID. So now when you go in for surgeries and whatnot, they're sneaking in consent to give you this so-called vaccine. The other thing is they're changing the word to biogenics. So how can you manage consent on those things, or can you, or does it have to be done on site?
So on the application, on the preferences there is a part under vaccines that you choose, like, I don't want to receive any vaccines, they think, for example.
Yeah.
And I guess that comes down to countries as well and the way their framework is done legally of how consent is done. On our side, we can show the data showing that you did not want any vaccines and you made it very clear in your database that you've chosen to not receive vaccines or any other treatment, right? That could be blood transfusions, whatever it may be. But the actual hospital, what they're doing on their side is kind of like, it's not on us now, right? You have to hopefully hope they act ethically, right? And go by your wishes, right? And if they don't, there should be legal recourse there. But at the same time, once they've already done something against your will, it's a little late, right? Money's only worth so much when someone gives you something that might have killed you or like made you in a wheelchair or something, right? Like, it's unfortunate, it happens all the time. And people do have the stigmas and their own preferences and what they believe in. And sometimes, and I've had this happen in hospitals where when they knew that I did not want to take certain vaccines or certain treatments, that they treat me differently because that. And I told them, hey, I'm a Canadian citizen. I live, work here. I pay my taxes, right? Your job is to treat what the actual symptoms are here. I ended up cutting my hand in that example, right? I opened up from here to here in my hand. I had to get stitches. I'm like, this has nothing to do with anything else, right? It's not a conversation we have to have, right? It's simple. I come in, I open my hand up, I need stitches. You're a hospital. Your job is to treat like a professional. And unfortunately, the situation that happened there was something I didn't like the way it happened. So I protected myself and I had it notarized of what happened that day and who I spoke with, what was said. And we have to protect ourselves too, because at the end of the day, it's a job, right? They have HIPAA and everything else they have to comply with. And they can't just do what they'd like and their what they feel is right, even though that might be right for you, but not for me, right? We have to respect our preferences and what people want and don't want to do with their lives, especially when it comes to healthcare, right?
Absolutely, which was unquestionable until 2020.
Of course, now we can talk about it.
Yeah, things are changed, so we need to have all the tools in our tool belts to fight against it. You know, I know stories where certain religious sects don't want to have blood transfusions, so the nurses had to watch children die, and they couldn't say anything. You know, and so now in 2020, your choices don't matter anymore. So, you know,
But what comes from some of these like extreme cases, like we've seen the last several years, and this not just vaccines, it's like them closing bank accounts, them doing all these extreme dystopian measures, is we realize we need solutions now, right? We need to have solutions built to stop these from happening in the future, to give us back the freedoms that we should have, period. It's not for someone to take those freedoms from you. And this technology resembles the starting point of that, right? These use cases, these solutions to some of these problems will solve some of those problems. And now there's a lot more work to do, but it starts off with first having a network that's stable and decentralized as much as we possibly can, while still making it secure so that it can't be manipulated or hacked or have any major flaws in it where it could be distorted or anything like that. And then building these use cases, these solutions on top of that network, right? Blockchain technology resembles that solution. And now, like we're trying to do on our side, is not just give you a network, but show you a few examples of how you can use this technology to solve the problems we have in the day-to-day lives, right? We're choosing to go with the medical first, voting, and then there's also Evo Access, where you have That same type of NFT is your access to a door. You can share access to anyone around the world, but at the end of the day, you only have one key that can open that door, and it is as secure as you can get, in my opinion, using our proprietary system on the back end. But people choose to use it. Like, we all have choices in life. If you don't want to use Evo Health, then don't use Evo Health, right? If you think that's best for you and you want to use it because of the strengths it has and the decentralization and open source, then use it, right? It's a tool you can use. The voting model. If you don't want to use this voting model for your locale stuff, you're not going to use it. We can't force anybody to do anything. We shouldn't, right? These are all just choices we'll make in the future with the tools we have at our disposal, right? We just have to make it so everyone can verify those tools work the way we say it's working and that they're secure, right? Because if they're not secure, we're not doing anything. We're just making an application that doesn't work.
Right. So it comes back down to a gatekeeper then verifying the information, verifying that it really is a real person attached to that token. And then it's up to you to either release the information, give access or not. I love that you can revoke access even after you've given it.
That's very important.
Yeah.
Because we all know doctors that sometimes get stuck in their ways and say, hey, you have to this. It's like, you know what? You no longer represent myself and my health. Luckily for me, my doctor, when we started the COVID stuff, he had one thought process, but we never actually argued or anything like that. He had respected my opinion, my choice. And then later on, he kind of shifted his stance a little bit. But at the same time, I respected that he did what he thought was best, even though I didn't think that was the best. But if he would have said, hey, either you do this or you find another doctor, I would have said, hey, take care. I'll find another doctor. But with this application, I can now search for local doctors. There's a rating system that after you receive treatment from a doctor, you can say, hey, this guy was amazing or this doctor was terrible. And now I can give valuable feedback that cannot be changed or revoked or modified. Once it's on the blockchain, it's stuck, right? You can't go back and modify that after. So I'll have true opinions of patients that the doctor had, and I can use that to make the best educational decision for myself, right? And doctors can show their specialties as well, right? They do this type of procedures or don't do that, or this is their views, etc. There's a lot that could be done there as we iterate and go through the versions of these applications to really fine tune this to both represent the best interests of the patient, but also appeal to the doctors at the same time so that both parties can benefit from this and get more information for the doctor side when it's coming up with why you're having these symptoms. The more data we give them, the easier it is for them to diagnose. And the patient, the more secure your data is and the more control you have over your own data, the more you feel like you're in control of your own health.
Yeah, there's several real world examples of why that is necessary. You know, we just had Dr. Hoff on the show not too long ago. And one of the fights that he was going through that most people don't know is that he is old school. So he kept all his records on paper and he didn't digitize any of his medical records. And the College of Physicians and Surgeons were threatening to take his license away unless he digitized all of those records. He polled his patients and they're like, absolutely not. Just please don't do that because we're worried about our privacy. And he's still in the fight over that. We know another doctor where she refused to give up her medical records and they came in with a warrant and took them. Right. So that's where the rules are out the window. Ethics are out the window. Tyrannical governments are rising and this puts the power back in your hand, which is pretty amazing.
Yeah. So what happens if you lose your token?
Great question. So you have your wallet. Let's say your phone breaks, it's on your computer breaks, etc. When you create your wallet, you're given 12 words. It's a passphrase and a private key. You're going to keep that separate in a safe somewhere location that you know and you can get to, right? But you're not going to tell anybody what those 12 words are or that private key. If you ever lost access to your Evo Health account, which is your digital wallet, right, that holds your health token, you can import that into a new location, a new desktop, a new phone, a new tablet, anywhere in the world using those 12 words or that private key. So there is a backup, right? We're also going to build into the system where if you lose access to both your account because your phone broke or your laptop went down, you lost your access to the keys as well, that you can go to your main doctor that you have and the person that makes decisions for you, your wife, your daughter, your son, your mother, whatever. And they can both sign a transaction that verifies you are the person, right? And then a new account can be made, and you get a new set of 12-word phrase, private key, and a new wallet. So the information that's on the database that doctor and your guardian has access to, they could then upload to a new account.
Right.
That's going to be done in a very careful way. So there has to be a bunch of stuff, protocols in the background that we implement there to make sure that people aren't just copying people's data, right? It's something we take very seriously, and that function will be later on, maybe not in the first version. But that being said, you do have that backup, right? You have your accounts that you have on one or two. You can have your account on your phone and your desktop at the same time.
Right.
But if you lose access to those, you have the backup of your 12 words and your private keys. If you lose access to those, you go another step there. But there might be another step or two that has to be taken to verify. Maybe a KYC process happening there. I'm not sure. So
Right.
we're going to work with both patients and professionals to see the best solution to some of these, right? Because this is a path, right? It's not we have a perfect system today as it is. We're building this out, and we're taking feedback from professionals and patients so that we can build this to not just apply to one or two people, but to the majority of people. And nothing's ever going to be perfect, but as close as we can get it.
Do you worry about, like, we're hearing about AI now writing its own code, and we as human beings, because they're evolving so fast, have no clue what they're doing? Does that ever worry you in the background that AI is going to write its own blockchain and then be able to hack in? So it's not just a human hacker you're worrying about. Now you're worrying about AI accessing or mining into your program and then doing whatever it wants with that information.
That's a great question. So that comes down to the consensus of the blockchain. So the big issue we have in Bitcoin's network, for example, for proof of work, is that quantum computing will be able to break that. As in, the computer will be so fast, it'll calculate every single other computer in the network and get all the blocks one after the other and be able to do something malicious there. With our blockchain, because it's a hybrid proof of stake, it's proof of authority and proof of stake. Proof of authority is every single person who becomes a validator in our network is KYC. So we know as a foundation, this is privacy is protected there through laws. We know who runs a node. We can't control who runs a node, as in, like, I can't say, hey, Jody can run a node, but Chris, you can't run a node, right? I just need to know Jody and Chris both have a node. So if Jody on your node does something malicious on our network or tries to, we can then take legal action against Jody. But with our network, even if Jody and Chris try to at the same time, they would not be able to do something to our network. The way it works is not that you have 51% of the total coins is important and then you can manipulate the network. It's not like that. It's everyone has a list of the blocks that they're going to do in a row, one after the other. And the amount of coins you have, it's either going first or last. But it's not like because you have too many coins, you're going to go over someone else before they get their chance. So the way our consensus works is extremely resistant to most attacks, if not all attacks. And we never know what's coming out in the future, but everything we've seen to this point, myself and the developers, and we have some world-class developers when it comes to blockchain behind this project, we don't see a path to that vulnerability when it comes to AI. We actually see benefits to AI when it comes to this. So on the blockchain layer itself, there will be no AI, but on top, as a second layer, we want to have an AI that looks for vulnerabilities and looks for malicious acts happening in real time. So if someone's trying to hack or scam other people, we want an AI that can look out for this happening, right? There's known exploits that happen all the time, and then give people a heads up. Hey, this wallet has been associated with a malicious act. Be careful when you interact with this wallet, as a warning, right? We can't shut down that wallet because it's open source and decentralized. But at the same time, we give everyone a heads up saying, this may be a malicious wallet. Be careful interacting there. And that there alone is enough to kind of stop a lot of these from happening. We also have what we call Evo certified. So a project or a founder that say, yeah, I want to build a token and it's going to be X, Y, and Z token. It's going to be, we're going to revolutionize the world, whatever it is. Okay. Them as a token founder or creator can come to the foundation and apply for EVO certified. So we'll KYC the company, we'll KYC the owners of the company, and get a brief like, hey, what are you doing? Great. We're going to audit the contract to look for known exploits, and then give the people of our network the results of that audit, so they know ahead of time that we know who they are. It's not public, as in like, we're not going to tell everybody who they are. If they did something malicious, we can now give this information to the authorities to prosecute these people. A lot of scams that happen in crypto because it's in the dark, right? Someone makes an account, no one knows who it is, they start a project, and then they rug the community. They take all the liquidity out of the swap, for example, and now it's like, hey, who was this person? We have no clue, but you lost whatever you put into there. With this, the EVO certified projects will give at least our community a kind of check mark of approval when it comes to they've been verified, we know who they are, and the contract's been audited, right? As a result, there's 10% of all the fees that we collect in our network, which is a fraction of a penny to start with, gets pooled and distributed between all the EVO certified tokens. So your community sees, hey, my founder went and EVO certified, so the foundation knows who they are. They now, because they did that and they did the audit, we know the audit passed and the contract's safe, or as safe as it can be, right? There's no perfect. And
Right.
now we're going to get a benefit of getting free EVO coins because they did that. It's like, great. I know now there's transparency, and now we're getting free EVO coins just because they did that. So it's kind of a way that we're doing everything we can on our side to kind of clean up the space. Everyone's like, hey, the regulators, this and that. A lot of bad stuff has happened in crypto, and the only way to get past that is to kind of solve our own problems, not wait for other people to come up with these or force us to do some of these things, right? If we do that ahead of time and think between ourselves, the founders, the owners, of how we can clean the space up even a little bit, it's going to go a long way to bringing in that next wave of people, right? The mass adoption that we're looking for in this space. And then people can really take this and run with this technology. It's going to get to the point where it's so simple that it'll be just like you with your car, you turn the key, it turns on. Most people don't know how a car works, but they use it every single day, right? We have to get to that point. And that comes with us doing our part to secure these networks and the little protocols that we can put in place that don't necessarily restrict anyone from building on these networks, but give them options to be more secure, right? Or options to choose which tokens they interact with because they've been EVO certified or other protocols, right? Yeah, there's a lot that can be done, and we're going to do everything we can on our side to kind of take those first steps. Yeah, it's going to be a long process. It's going to be a long road, but we have a ambitious vision. And if we're looking to change healthcare and voting access and some other projects that we're working on, it starts with having a secure network. So the more we can do there, the better off everyone is.
Right. Now, I'm assuming KYC doesn't stand for Kiss Your Cocker Spaniel. You said it a lot, and we haven't asked you what that means just yet.
Well, it's know your customer, right? So
okay.
It's verifying your identity.
Not know my customer.
I was just going to say, for those of you who don't know what KYC is, it is know your client or know your customer.
I did not know.
I didn't realize you didn't know.
No.
And KYB. So it's know your business, know your customer, know your client.
Yes.
It's a validation of who the person is. They have to show a piece of ID from whatever country they're from, right? Take a picture with that ID. And there's companies all over the world that specialize just in KYC. And there's companies that specialize in crypto specifically when it comes to wallets. And before you interact with wallets, knowing that they weren't a part of something malicious, they haven't been involved in money laundering or anything like that. Things are getting really strict when it comes to starting a crypto company and the regulations around it. In the US, we're going to see a nice little boom now with the new the government that's in there now with Trump and everything else. And we're hoping to find that middle ground now, right? Where it's like, okay, we understand there's some vulnerabilities here when it comes to malicious acts on blockchain in crypto itself. And we want to work with regulatory frameworks around the world, but it can't be where you're so restricted you can't even breathe, right? This should still be for the people. It should not just be accredited investors getting involved early in these projects and getting all the benefit, and then the day-to-day people, which is your community, right? These crypto projects, sometimes some of them have tens of thousands, some of them have millions of people in their network building on top of it. Those are your community. That's your life and blood of your blockchain. So if you go just to rich investors that are already like rich, right? They don't need the extra cash. Then unfortunately, you're kind of cutting out the community and you're getting them second or third entry points when they should be the first ones in, right? They're the ones that are going to push your blockchain forward. They're the ones that are going to interact with each other and build on your blockchain. They should get the biggest benefit of building what is their blockchain, right? A blockchain is only viable if it's used by a lot of people. So we're trying to come at this from a different perspective than other blockchains. One of the biggest things being we will be backed by a reserve physical gold. And how that works is during the pre-sale, 30% buys ounces of actual physical gold that gets stored in custodial services around the world in every continent, starting with North America. And you'll be able to, unlike many other blockchains, I'm not sure if there's any other blockchain doing this, be able to exchange your EVO coins for their asset per coin amount of gold that backs it. So for example, if there's 100 ounces of gold in the reserve, right? And this doesn't mean it's 1 ounce of gold, 1 EVO coin. This means 100 ounces of gold, or whatever the total amount of ounces is, backs the total supply of EVO coins. So if there's 200 EVO coins and 100 EVO ounces of gold, every coin has half an ounce backing it, right? And that's dynamic because we're also deflationary. But that might be for another day to go into a deep dive of.
Yes, please.
That's good. So, this sort of thing, you're just, how long have you been around?
In the crypto space, it's been longer than I can remember, probably 7 years plus. And I don't come from a crypto background. I don't come from a technical background. This was literally me getting into this starting point. Hey, what is this? Why is there value to this? Why should I value a digital token, Bitcoin at a few $100s at that point, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why is that price there? And then once you start to really grasp the blockchain technology, the trustlessness, the ledger, then I started to realize, hey, this is going to be something amazing. This is going to revolutionize a lot of industries. I have to learn more. So the next few years was just me every day after work, and I'd be working till 6 o'clock at night. I'd be up till 2, 3 in the morning a lot of times, and then back to work at 6 in the morning, right? Learning, trying. I mined for Ethereum for a long time. I've traded. I've built an NFT collection, and I've seen the flaws, the good, the bad from other projects launching and either succeeding or failing. And even ones that have succeeded that still have some vulnerabilities and or flaws to them, in my opinion. And Evolve Blockchain was the accumulation of all these years of seeing the crypto market evolve and the pain points that I've seen over time, the pain points that we've had with launching our NFT collection and trying to build our Freedom Fund token, a decentralized charity token led by the people, that came into what Evolve Blockchain represents today. A bridge between the old system, physical assets, property, etc., and the newer technical side of blockchain technology, scalability, the trustlessness, all of that combined to give people a bridge into blockchain technology, into the crypto markets. And a lot of people, when they think about blockchain, they think, oh, the price of Bitcoin, this and that. That's irrelevant. The price is it's going to fluctuate. It's going to do what it's going to do. The technology behind it is revolutionary. The technology is going to change the way we interact. It's going to change the way we tokenize ownership of properties or data for healthcare or access into a building or a resort, right? Or voting in our elections, in polling and the rest. It's going to bring a trustlessness that we haven't seen yet. And then AI on top of that's going to amplify it. Now, do we have to be careful? Of course we do. And we have to make sure that we measure twice and cut once every step of the path we have here. But if we do this right, this is the future. This is the next step.
I think way back when you and I met with regards to the Freedom NFTs, because I believe one was being done on me, or I gave my permission for it way back when.
The only ones that are actually created, you had to have signed the paperwork for it. So you might have asked you for it, but I don't think there's one actually created of yourself.
I just know that myself and Ben Crane Truck,
Ben,
Um,
Ben
from
DeGill.
the Freedom Convoy. Yeah, I remember I had to send in pictures and all of that sort of stuff. I think I was talking with
He
you.
did send the
And
paperwork then. So I'm not
yeah,
sure if yours ever got created. Dave Steenberg, Ben, I believe. We have Ernest Jr., the child that unfortunately died from the vaccine in the U.S.
yes,
Maddie
yes,
DeLary, we have one of her as well. But
yeah.
we ran into a wall right after we started that because the price of the NFTs that were raising funds, vaccine injury, mental illness, and job loss, that's where they would have gone to
Yes.
cases of those or charities regarding those. We were selling them for $50 a NFT token, and the cost of the Ethereum fees in the network were $50 or more. So we're like, wait a second, we can't do that, right? It doesn't make sense anymore. It's too expensive. So we ended up pausing that, building the network, and now we're going to launch those NFTs on Evolve blockchain. And Freedom Fund Token, which is our charity wing of the blockchain, will end up being basically a fund of assets that get quarterly profits. And all the profits from that fund get donated. Everyone holding a Freedom Fund token decide first what charities we're going to choose from so they can propose them and pass those by voting. And then at every quarter, we have the Freedom Fund vote. They decide how much of the profits get given to each one of those charities that they voted in. Right? So it's a decentralized humanitarian effort, unlike anything out there, with complete transparency. You'll be able to see what was made in profit, how much went to each one of these charities, and the community decided what happened there all across. And then you have like updates of what happened there too, right? So part of why we built Evolve blockchain was because of the obstacles and the pain points we ran into trying to build the United Freedom Convoy NFT collection and the Freedom Fund token, to the point where, like, you know what? I don't see an option that I think is going to be here 100 years down the line or can achieve mass adoption, in my opinion. And some people will think otherwise, and they think other blockchains are great. And there's a lot of great blockchains out there, but there's nothing like Evolve blockchain. This was my vision of my solution to the problems we ran into in all these different projects that we're trying to make some real world difference. But the hurdles and the scalability just wasn't there in the solutions we had already. So luckily, we got the right team together, and we've done something astronomical in the last year. We've done something that hasn't been done before. We have a consensus that we have to finish off some patenting on, and then we'll open source as much as we can so people can then evolve on top of us, right? This is blockchain was never meant to be one blockchain. It is what it is. Everyone use it. It was always meant to evolve, to progress, to get better and better with technology. And we are another step in the road, right? The way we can scale, we can kind of act as a highway to other blockchains. Is like I like to refer to that way. So ones that can scale or having problems scaling because of our 100K TPS, they can jump onto our blockchain through bridges, benefit from being there, and then jump right back into their networks. So it's not like one blockchain to rule them all. It's everyone working together to improve the ecosystem and to give people different options that someone's going to make the decision which one's best for them. Same thing like the medical health and everything else. If they decide Evo Health's best for them, great. We have an application for you to use, and we're going to do everything possible, not just for someone else, but for us as well, right? These are solutions we want in our day-to-day lives because of what's happened over the last several years, where we identified the way things are working now does not work long-term. We have to solve these problems. We have to change from what we're doing, or else keep doing the same thing over and over. Definition of insanity, right?
Correct.
Right. And that's what I like. You know, we've bumped into you several times. You've been there, and you come with a long list of people who can vouch for you. You know where the government's heading. You see the slippery slope. You see the dangerous path we're going down. And a lot of people are screaming solutions, and you're out going, well, decentralization is one of those solutions. So you're coming hard out of the gate. And when you started telling us about the health applications, this is brilliant. We've talked to so many doctors, and we know what they've gone through, and we know how they lost everything just trying to protect their clients' records and whatnot. And you're coming like hard out of the gate with this. I know that people are talking to you about this, like big organizations are talking to you about this already. I'm gonna we don't do this to sell anything ever. We're not. You can confirm we're not an affiliate of yours, but you are looking for investors, and we may as well. If you're looking to help a solution get out there, and you don't know what to do, and you don't know how to help, this is a way that'll benefit you down the road anyway. So
Yes.
let's just call it straight out. You are looking for investors. Is that correct?
Yeah. Right now, we're looking to speed up basically the progression in the timeline, because the earlier we get this out there to the people, the better it is.
Okay.
Yes.
That does not mean we're cutting corners or anything like that. We're going to bring on more people. We're going to have a large group of people working for us and with us that are behind this in the vision of what we're building. And that's been everyone working at the time they have, and everyone has full-time jobs. But that being said, we are looking for investors to amplify our path to market, our development, and some of the regulatory framework that has to be put in place in a short period of time. At the same time, not just investors. If you are a blockchain developer, if you have expertise that you believe can help us, reach out. We're always looking to partner with other organizations or bring on more people who feel like they have a role to play here. If this is something that appeals to you, if this vision is something that you want to see come to reality, and you have a role to play in this, let's talk. Let's bring you on. Let's get you involved, because this is our solution. It's not my solution. This blockchain is not owned by myself. It's not going to be controlled by myself. It'll be controlled by the community and all the validators that are putting their time, sweat, effort, tears into this, right? So at the end of the day, we're always open to investors coming in, helping us progress at a faster pace, and new people that want to get involved as well. So I appreciate you guys making that call out for us. And I want to see these come to fruition as soon as possible, just as much as you guys do.
Well, I think there's powerful in it. In 2020, I just about invested in a blockchain company, and they were doing tickets for events, and it was going to just eradicate all the scalping and whatnot, and raising all the prices. And I literally had the investors package in my inbox. I was going to sign the papers and get it back to them like within the next 2 days. COVID hits. And, and I immediately saw the damage to events going on right there. Right. So I pulled back, and I don't think they're around anymore, unfortunately, but great. And I saw the technology back then. So it's not that we're opposed to technology. We're opposed to who's controlling that technology. And we often get down on blockchains, digital ID, crypto, and infrastructure stuff and technology stuff because we know who's controlling it. And we don't spend enough time delineating between technology is the extension of the people who are in control of it.
Exactly.
And that's one thing that we don't delineate enough. And I think you're doing great things, Ritchy. Yeah,
this environment, this blockchain technology, the space itself is going to grow significantly in the next 10, 20 years, right? The use cases that we talked about today are just a few of the ones that we were focusing on. We're working on tickets as well, but that's something that we can't even start on until everything else is done, right? There's 1,000,001 different ideas we have that I've thought of and have on paper. It's just a matter of we gotta take it one at a time, because there's a lot of industries we can revolutionize with. Excuse me.
Well, elections and healthcare are two of the big ones at the forefront of everybody's minds, right. And privacy and a must to protect. So thank you for starting there.
Right. And I know we're wrapping up, but I have one more question. Do you have any idea on what to do when digital ID looks like it's coming down the pipe pretty quick? And that means that access to the internet could just get cut off completely. Access to your phones could get cut off completely unless you have digital ID. Any ideas on solutions because you are digital technology, we're going to need access to those things. How do we get around that?
Decentralized networks is one of the biggest tools you can use for that. So decentralized social media, for example, right? Not having it hosted on servers run by big corporations, mesh networks for internet. There are solutions that are started that people are trying to solve these problems because they've seen how much propaganda and limiting of speech that's been happening. You know what? For the last 4 or 5 years, it's been terrible in so many ways. But but at the same time, it's exposed so much of the fraud and manipulation that happens all over us, like all around us at a daily basis. So I'm both looking back at it as like a terrible time that we went through, but at the same time, grateful for the lessons we learned at the same time. Now we have to solve these problems, right? When it comes to having an exchange, something that we can exchange, barter with, blockchain technology can solve that part of it, right? I feel like Evo is positioned to solve that pretty well because we are backed by a reserve of a physical asset. We do have transparency in the rest, and we are excelling at the well, we can compete with any blockchain out there at this point. And that's still early because we still have to prove ourselves, right? You can't just say you're the fastest or you're the, which we don't say we're the fastest. We say we're fast, we're secure, and we're scalable, right? And we have intrinsic value in a baseline backing of a reserve of physical gold. Now, as we go through the steps in the next several years, we have to come up with decentralized social media. We have to come up with actually a way, an example of that would be Portal. So Portal, except the Q, they make it where you run your own node, and it's a social media platform that you can interact like Facebook and other host videos, etc. And you control your social media, and no one can stop that because you're running your own node, right? There's no government controlling that. Internet is a big one where we have to start getting decentralized internet because governments have a lot of power on the internet we use. And if they wanted to overnight, they can censor what we see or shut it down altogether. We're already seeing China with their social scores where people are going to markets and from one area to another and getting rejected. You get up, next, go back home, right? That's extremely dangerous and extremely concerning. And us using the technology we have in decentralized ways and open sourced ways to kind of solve some of these and prevent us losing more of our freedoms or going to a position where we can't fight back at a certain point, right? Or we can't live our lives free anymore. It's going to be important that the next few years we are on our toes. And that starts with us building these as well, right? We can't wait for other people to build solutions for us. We can do what we can, and then someone else has to pick up the other side of it, right? We all have a role to play, small, big, medium, doesn't matter. You sharing information is a role to play. You coming up with an idea and bringing that to someone that can make it into reality is a role to play. There's so many different aspects to this. It could either be a really great world in a few years or a really kind of sad world, depending how we go here. But I'm optimistic. I think that the good always the bad. The light will come through, and we'll solve problems because we're having to solve these problems. We get complacent sometimes and say, "Oh, it's not that bad. Oh, it's not that bad. Oh, they're doing this, but they're not doing that." Right? And it just gets worse and worse and worse. And the place, okay, something has to give here. I can't do this anymore. Right?
Yeah.
For the truckers, that was the convoy. They got to the point where they said, "You know what? We have to stop this now," and it had real world impact. Right?
Yeah.
And it was peaceful, which was the best part of all of it. They pushed them to the edge, and it was still peaceful. That shows the world we don't have to throw sticks and stones. We can peacefully bring these solutions out and make it in a way where the people want these solutions, right? And it's not going to be forced upon us. We get to choose our path in life. So if we all choose the right path, if we all choose to go in a way that benefits all of us, the governments and people in power will have to kind of go with us, right? Because at the end of the day, we are the many.
They are the few.
And they are the few, and sometimes it feels like it's the opposite, but it's not. Governments still work for us. So let's bring some of these restrictions back and get the right people elected. That's a big one. Independent people representing us and our locales, right? Not someone who's there as a career politician who just wants to fill their pockets and gets caught with all these scams and briberies and all this stuff. It's ridiculous. It's a clown show what's happening around us, unfortunately. But that's something I can't control. I'm going to do what I can on my side with Evolve blockchain and the use cases we're trying to build out.
Right.
Perfect.
Well, thank you. Thank you for coming in, demystifying some of this stuff, and amazing stuff you're working on.
Yes.
I am genuinely excited about your health end of this. And we'll be checking in regularly to see how that's going, and I'll have you back when you've got some more stuff to report.
Awesome.
We're hoping to have some trials started in the next little bit. So when we have new updates with that, we'll give you guys a call, and we'll inform the public as well.
Amazing.
Sounds
well,
great.
I lost my doctor over the fact I wouldn't wear a mask, and that was it. I'm doctorless now. Yeah. So yeah, I'm all ears. All right. Well, thanks for watching, everybody. Thank you for Ritchy for coming. We'll see you Monday.
Yeah, have a great weekend, everybody. Do something with your kids. Make some memories, and if you don't have kids and don't want to make memories with your family and friends, then go out and support somebody who is doing action. So
that's right.
Thanks for having me, guys. Take care, everyone.
Thank you. Good night, everybody.
Take care.